Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. Let's meet your hosts, Chris Angel and Michael Maher.
3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, this is Michael J. Maher. Welcome to Referrals Podcast. Referrals Podcast episode 60. Are you kidding me? Somebody's losing a bet. Somebody is losing a bet. They said that Referrals Podcast would never go 60 episodes. And guess what? We made it. And we have many, many more in the future. And I first have to give a quick shout out to those of you that have emailed us and posted on Facebook, posted on Instagram and Twitter about your successes with Referrals Podcast. We did have someone who really is not in our coaching or in Catalyst or CRT, even certified referral training, who got 60 referrals at their event. So kudos to them. Kudos to Sherry McGuire in our event mastery class. She got 6 referrals at her very first event, an ice cream social, and she handed out 38 referrals to the sponsors of that event, and she actually made money throwing the event. How cool is that? You know. So for those of you that aren't familiar with 7L system and the book 7L, there's 7L is really the one-to-one building relationships, going from having relationships to getting referrals. And we've now kind of piled on the one-to-many strategy that we do with events and seminars and dinners and that kind of thing. And so we talk about that on Referrals Podcast. We talk about maximizing and mastering the one-on-ones and also maximizing and mastering the one-to-many strategy. And one of those masters is here today to be our guest co-host. And today she's mostly guest. And then in the future, she's going to be mostly co-host. So she's the hostess with the mostest in more ways than one, but we need to welcome all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona, Sandy Krestan.
Well, I am ridiculously excited to be here with you. I'm so excited to, in the future, co-host. And I'm from Chicago, am in Scottsdale, and today I happen to be in Chicago because I just presented the strategy, systems, and tools of 7L to a new group of agents, and I'm super excited.
I love it. Teaching in Chicago, teaching the methodologies of 7L in Chicago. Yeah. How cool is that? And getting paid to do it and being paid to fly there and stay there, and you get to hang out with your friends for a couple of days because of your journey, right? That's another step on your journey. And that's what I really want to talk about today is just your journey through this process has not been, 30 years. It's really been kind of encapsulated over the last 7 to 10 years. And I really want people to get a feel for that because some people have not even taken the first step on the journey while you are on, step 1,000. You're close to the top of the mountain on this. And I really want to dive into that. And I want to also tell people that, hey, listen, for the next few months, we are going to be having guest co-hosts and co-hosts who come on to this to co-host and really dive deep. Did Chris Angel disappear? He did not disappear, though it's really hard to see him on today's episode. But the thing is Chris will be back occasionally. We'll have him back occasionally. But we really wanted to set a tone for those who, listen, they're in the real estate or lending or financial planning or the business world, and they literally are doing this every single day. And they're going to bring some, I would call them almost like intricate questions to the table that I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm not sure if we can do any better than our first co-host with Sandy Krestan. So, Sandy, thank you, first of all, for being on here. And thank you in advance for helping us out with future episodes. I just locked you in right there. I just want you to know that you have now committed to it in front of, 14,000 downloads a month or whatever it is. So
I am so in for it. I'm there. I'm ready.
Thank you. And you've been on in the past about grading the database and helping people really take that first step within it. But I want to go back to your first step when you first started and how you got informed about 7L, Michael Maher, the generosity generation, all of that. So how did you get started?
I got started by seeing a video on Facebook. And the funny part is I'm in my girlfriend's house right now in Chicagoland area who made me get on Facebook. She literally forced me because we were talking about reunions. And I then was coached by a company for 7 years. And one of the coaches there who did mostly real estate agent coaching put out on Facebook a video about this book with a black cover that was all about, the levels of communication. And he said, if you're a real estate agent, you must read this. And
oops. I was trying to grab one.
Of the, oh,
I
wish I still had, I have my original book, but somehow my cover, I always take my covers off when I dive into a book. I don't have the black cover anymore. I don't know what I do with it. It's probably packed away in a box. I'll find it someday. But he held up that book, and Bill Hart said, read this. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm blonde. I'm not stupid. Nothing against being blonde. And I'm like, I went on Amazon. I ordered the book and it showed up at the house. And at that point, my son, I think Kyle was about 10 years old. And he played on some baseball teams and a starting catcher. And it showed up on a Friday. And that Saturday morning, Kyle had no baseball, which was like an act of
super unusual.
God, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I said, oh my gosh, I have a Saturday with no baseball. I cracked open the book and I didn't leave the couch until it was done at one time. And I read it. And I was like,
or the book?
I'm sorry?
The Bill Hart video or the book?
No, the book.
And by the way, I have to give a shout out to Bill Hart. He, I've heard this story before, from his Facebook video doing a review of 7L. I've heard this before. Other people who, through his influence, were turned onto the book and are now full-fledged members of the generosity generation. And many of our leaders have spurred from that video. So a big shout out to Bill Hart. And so that weekend you had nothing better to do. So you had to dive into this book.
No, I believe it actually was a gift from God that Saturday morning that Kyle didn't have a baseball game.
Wow. The nice thing about a book is that it's a gift that you can open again and again.
And give.
And give. True.
Give for sure. And so I sat and read it through one time and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to rock my mortgage world. Yeah. Right. I had been doing loans for that point almost 25 years. And I think it was over 25 years. And I'm like, wow. And I sat that night after Kyle went to sleep and my husband went to sleep and I reread it. But then I reread it that same night with a pen and a highlighter. And I took notes on the inside covers of the front and the back of how Rick got coached, because I knew that was the secret sauce. Mm-hmm. Everything that Rick was going to do, I needed to do in my business. And then I was like, I need to teach this to my favorite agents because they're my favorite. Mm-hmm. And I want them to have not only the best business, but the best life ever. And so I chewed on it and started implementing it. And as I implemented it, I had success, I had failure, and then I had some success. Mm-hmm. And then I actually built a PowerPoint that was, and I called it the 7 weeks to greatness, mm-hmm. right? And it was 7 weeks of implementing how Rick got coached. And I started teaching it to my favorite agents, and I'll never forget Dale Hilliard at West USA was my first guinea pig. He's so kind and loving, and I love that man. He has a heart of gold. And he brought in a first group of agents to me in my office, and we went through the 7 weeks together. And it was that moment where I saw the light bulbs go off mm-hmm. and the hearts get touched that I was like, ooh, mm-hmm. this is like super stealthy awesome. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I started my journey with the 7 levels of communication.
So I think a few things there that we have to kind of break down and talk about. First of all, this was probably 8 years ago? Is that where the story starts? I'm trying to think when Bill posted that. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago.
June of 2011.
Yeah. So over 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago. And, do you think that you really were tied more to the story because you are a top lender like Michelle Phillips in the book. And Michelle, the mortgage professional, leads Rick to the event and through the process in many ways. Do you think that triggered something for you, that you kind of saw yourself a little bit in Michelle, or do you think it was different than that?
No, I think it was a little different. I think what I saw was the life being changed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm blessed. Both of my parents were super hard workers. My dad was an electrician, and then they owned their own business. And my mom, most of her life, was a stay-at-home mom, but they loved what they did. I mean, they loved it. And I've always really liked mortgages,
Yeah.
Loved it. But what I saw in 7L was like a reignited passion, that you really can have it all. You can have the systems and strategies that will let you have a great life, but a great business.
So what did you implement first? Right. So, and the first thing I have to acknowledge that, I hear occasionally, but I don't want to gloss over now, because I have to remember there's people who have not read 7L. I have to remember that. I spoke in Virginia Beach last week, and I said, who's read it? And, half the audience raised their hand, and I said, who hasn't read it? The other half raised their hand. It is what it is. So first I have to acknowledge that you read it, which is how people read it. They read it to find out how it ends. And the fact that they all die in the end is a little macabre twist, but I like it. I'm just kidding. They don't die for the most part. But here's the thing, is you then reread it for the 80, 90 strategies that were contained within. Now we've discovered that there was over 100. At that time I was telling you there were 80 to 90, but now there's over 100 strategies within the book. And you went and highlighted, right? So you've got all these strategies, and for some people who are new to 7L, they read it, it can be overwhelming, So what triggered for you? What did you do first? What should somebody not do first that you failed at, or maybe you took on too much or too thick of a chew?
The first thing I did was that literally hit me right between the eyes was getting my database graded. That was like the skies opened, the angels started singing, and it was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I've been frustrated, because they were all in, my past clients were in there as closed client. Well, I didn't know who was my best closed client.
Yeah.
So if I started feeling all proud one day and I sit there and made 20 phone calls, well, they ended up being all D's, and I didn't really connect. I didn't get any referrals, and I ended up frustrated. And then no wonder why it was literally pulling out teeth for the next day to go make another 10 phone calls.
Right, because you're wasting your time, energy, effort, and money on those who were not reciprocating and weren't feeding you the energy, right?
Yeah.
So energy exchange. And then
huge.
And I would say that's a big one for a lot of people. And one of the things I truly discovered almost by necessity or accident versus true, I had heard to grade my database early, all the way back early in my business, but I actually did it, right? So I did the A, B, C, and D, and but the difference with 7L than just grading your database is the A+. It's the A+. It's not just segmenting your database, it's super segmenting. You want to super segment your database, and where the value came for me is building, if you grade your database A, B, C, and D, you end up, let's say you have 500 people, you end up with 100 A's, you end up with 125 B's, you end up with 125 C's, and you end up with 250 D's. It's that's still these gigantic bushels of people that really aren't segmented enough yet. I wish I had my 3-ring binder, but my ambassador book, that was so critical to my success, and is super segmenting and identifying those A+.
Yeah. It was funny because I had them ID status, because since 1999, I had used ACT as a database. So I had the referred by, I had, what they were, closed client, prospect, agent, partner, whatever I called it.
Yep.
But I hadn't made what I like to call my heart and my head connection.
Yeah.
Where I went and said, okay, I'm going to embrace the fact that I have stunk ridiculously at staying in touch intentionally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at this person, and I didn't really get this when I printed all 2,500 contacts out of my ACT database like a telephone book. And I sat there with a pencil, and I sat there with the printed group. Not going to lie, I was in my comfy thinking chair. I had a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
It was at night. I was starting to go. Pardon?
Liquid confidence.
Yeah.
Right. You had some liquid confidence. Yeah.
I started going through, and I was like, your grading scale, which I adapted a little bit for me as a lender, because I need about 65% more than most agents need when we looked at my business planning and knowing my numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, here's the pencil, here's the paper. I'm like, D,
mm-hmm.
D, zip,
Yeah.
D,
Yeah.
B, thank you, Lord, thank you.
Yeah.
A, yay, D, C. And I was like, what? Went and refilled my wine.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't understand initially was, instead of having another glass of wine, I should have been ridiculously excited.
Right.
Because that meant I was really going to embrace, which is one of my absolute favorite things from the book. And I probably will never get a tattoo, but if I did, it might say this: give my best to my best.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have been excited that my best of me was actually going to be more to them,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't going to be distracted. I wasn't going to be disrupted with going to the wrong people when it comes to my business.
And that's such a huge part of this, is that, when I went to grade by database in the very beginning, it was more B, and B is, you don't know, right? You don't know if they're going to refer you or not. You just don't know. So, literally, if I had 250 people at that time, probably 200, maybe 225 were B. It really was that I just simply don't know. Even with some past clients, it's just like, I just don't know. So it's like, all right, first thing I got to do is I got to create a way to know. And the way to know is to ask them that in the future, if they ever ran into somebody, who would they recommend they call first? And I got some very interesting answers to that. Some said me, some didn't say me, but I did find some financial planners, insurance agents, wealth advisors, and other people who would be the first call. And I built my network with that type of person. So it's interesting when you do first grade it, you're going to have a lot of question marks, but
you have to be able to also grade off their potential, right? Because you embrace the fact I stunk at staying in touch, but this person, I really liked them when I helped them. I totally remember them. They're super connected. They work at this company. So I'm going to grade them as if they're an ambassador, and I'm going to love on them as if they are. And there's a really good chance that's what they're going to end up being for me.
That's right. And that's what I love about kind of we've 7L and the system and what we teach now is 8 to 10 years deep, but we're not just teaching 7L over and over again, right? 7L, what people know of 7L from the book, they would be stunned to find out where it is now. It's grown. And one of those ways it's grown, in my opinion, is the grading and segmenting of the database. And we had Rita Driver and Darla Evanoff on grading as well. And one of the things I love teaching about grading is grading by energy. And this is one of those things that I truly believe it should almost be done first, is instead of maybe grading them by referral, we grade them by energy. Like, do they plus you or do they minus you? And just go through. And you're going to have some zeros where you're like, I don't even remember this person. And that's okay. But I would even say, like, go with your first blink. There's a great book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. It's just go by what you like, the name, and just like good feeling, bad feeling. If it's a good feeling, put a plus. If it's a bad feeling, put a minus. And then you go back through and you figure out, okay, of the pluses, who multiply you, who take you to the next, like a Sandy Krestan, right? That these people that when you're around them, you leave with more energy than you arrived. They truly are multipliers. And you put an X through the plus sign, and now you have an asterisk or a multiplication sign for those type of people. Not every plus is going to get the X through it, so it's a multiplication sign. And then you look at the minuses, and you go, minus, kind of negative, and then you find these people who are just so argumentative. If they post on Facebook, you cringe. Like, you haven't even seen what they said yet, but it's probably going to be like negative, divisive, argumentative, and you just put a dot above that minus sign for a division sign because they're divisive. So you've got your multipliers, you've got your pluses, you've got some zeros, you've got some minuses, and you've got some division. Well, division equals D equals delete, and then you've got your minuses equal C equal, and an interesting friends and family sometimes fit in that category. And then you've got your O, which is your B, and then you've got your pluses, which are your A's, and then you've got your multipliers, which are your A pluses, and you're not going to have a ton of multipliers, but it's like, as soon as you get done with the list, call your multipliers. Just call and say hi. Who knows what will happen, And it's just like, just say, hey, listen, I was just looking through my database and I thought of you. How are you doing today? And they're going to be, oh my God, Michael Maher, how you doing? By the end of those 5 or 6 calls, you're like, man, I am so glad I just did that grading,
Working by referral is not some fairy tale world. It's real. I've seen it. And you can too. Invest in yourself by learning how to run your business by referral at Michael's upcoming live event. It will be a day filled with hands-on, how-to, low to no-cost strategies that you can implement in your business right away. Learn how to run a business by referral that not only feeds your family, but feeds your soul. Go to www.gengenevents.com today. That's www.gengenevents.com.
Well, it was funny because I sat with these agents yesterday, and the only introduction to 7L that most of them had was a year ago with me, and then the other half hadn't. And so I took them through the grading scale and talked about it, and then I had them open up their phones. And I'm like, this is what we're looking for. And I said, who's going to be
I'm going to do it right now.
Guinea pig,
All
right?
I'm going to do it. Do it. All right. Anything Sandy teaches, do. Like right away, immediately. And she teaches all across the country, Canada, English-speaking places. And she's a phenomenal speaker, probably spoken and taught on 7L as much as anybody in the country. So, all right. So I've got my phone. Okay. What am I doing?
So we're going to look, you could pick a letter, you could start at the beginning, whichever works best for you. I like to start at the top because it's orderly.
Yeah.
And I can always write down where I end then. We're looking for people that, your first thought is, man, I like that dude or that girl.
Yeah.
They're connected.
Yeah.
Like you walk into a room with them and people smile just seeing them.
Yeah.
If that is
the case,
right? So
2.5.
Right. So you're looking at that name, and I would have you write it down on a piece of paper, right? Just write their name out on a piece of paper. But we're already moving on. Let's go to the next one. Because what I don't want you doing is overthinking it. Oh, I don't know. I kind of think this, and I kind of think that. No, this is the quick wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, right from the gut.
Okay.
Right? I like the person. They're connected. I could see spending time with them. I think they would appreciate how I am. Value-wise and everything. And then put a grade next to it, A+ or A. We're not worrying about the BCDs.
Yeah.
Because they're probably never going to help you grow your business through referrals.
Right. All right. So I wrote down 3 on the first page who fit that bill, and I have them all 3 as an A.
Okay.
So not quite an A+. I have a really high standard for A+ at this point. So, A is their category pretty comfortably.
Right. So we're talking about A's. And then I ask, tell me if you have done this, because this is what I believe, and this is what 7L believes, that you add massive value.
That's right.
And to me, adding massive value is I intentionally am talking with them or trying to talk to them once a month. I am inviting them to events at least 6 times a year, or in combination with a one-on-one. I send them a monthly update in regards to what I do, which is mortgages, a mortgage market update, or if you do real estate, a real estate update about your area.
Okay.
If you're doing those things, would they be still an A, or do you think if you added massive value to them and in their life, would they be an A+?
So here's what's really amazing about this. It just so happens that I am not sure if these 3 are in our database. They're in my phone, but I'm not sure if they're in the Referco world, right? And here's my thought, is that if I did what you said, which is invite them to our events and do a monthly update, or at least send them the weekly wow, right?
Yep.
Then I would almost guess that all 3 of these people would go to Referral Mastery Summit.
Yeah.
They haven't been invited.
Yeah. And so that's what I sat with these agents, and they each had a list of between 10 and 15 people. Yeah. And I only had a short 90 minutes with them because I could just talk about how much I love 7L in 90 minutes straight without even getting into content if you let me. But we finished, and I was there talking with them, and I stayed in their office for a couple hours because Koya Smith is the RE/MAX owner broker. So I was working with her, and we're working on doing maybe some coaching. And by the time I went to leave, I had 3 different people come up to me going, because I told them, I said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take the next hour and just call one of those people, just one. Mm-hmm. And I had someone walk up and go, I just got a listing presentation opportunity, and I wouldn't have called them if I wasn't here today.
Wow. There you go.
And that's the part where I go, this is why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I believe the more people that work the generosity generation and work, and this isn't about working for referrals. This is about taking care of your community.
That's right.
Because one of the bad guys that doesn't put their interest first could get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And that's a no-no.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson right there. And one of the things that I love about it is too many approaches to database are quantity focused. Add 250 people to your database. You throw more trash on a trash heap, then what good is it? Pretty soon you just have an overflowing trash heap, which is what most people CRM or database really is. And what's bad is that you might go, well, they're not trash heap, they're people. Okay, so how are you treating them? Are you treating them like people, or are you treating them like trash?
Yeah, because you don't have time to give your best to everybody.
That's right, and you get overwhelmed with it, and that's exactly how it is with anything. Early in my career, it was sending magnets and calendars and all these different things, and it's really easy to do that when you have 50 or 100 people or 250 people in your database. And then through housewarming parties, events, and everything else I was doing, networking, I was over 1,500, over 2,500 people pretty soon in my database. Well, all of a sudden, that's a really big check to write to get calendars or magnets or whatever it may be. And you're like, okay, if you can't treat everybody the same, like at school, right? You can't bring enough pizza for everybody. Don't bring pizza at all. And that's been a lot of people's approach to the database is, well, if I can't do it for everybody, I'm not going to do it for anyone. And it ends up that you don't do anything for anyone. Well, of course, you're going to get nothing in return. And the beauty of this grading and really focusing on, the few and focusing on the quality, not the quantity, is that you get quality back. And it doesn't mean delete everybody. It just means really focus and give your best. give your best is a great tattoo. Should be on everybody.
Well, you know what? It's actually made me lift my game up.
Yeah.
We were really good at doing loans, but when I don't remember when I heard you say this, but it like hit me so bad. Do you want to be average or do you want to be memorable?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, memorable. Yeah. So if I take myself through the mortgage transaction, how do we make this so it's memorable, a non-event for them? And when they get our surveys, we're getting 10 out of 10s, period. Like we got a 9.75 and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, like, okay, what could we have done better? Kind of thing. And it makes you lift how you do things up even higher. Because I know taking care of my ambassadors and champions and referrals from ambassadors and champions, man, we got to be our best because that's what they expect.
Yep. Well, and, it's one of those where, that's the beauty of the 7L system and what we teach with everything we do is that, and I'm going to be very harsh. Most sales systems that are out there are based, on chasing, hunting and killing. And people are like, oh, hunting and killing, you're being so strong with it. Well, they say crushing, hunting and killing. You got to be a hunter, And here's the problem, right? So what does a hunter do? Preys on the weak, right? So this sales system has been based off preying on the weak forever. And you're like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, here's the thing. The sales system of the old is you knock on doors or you'd call people until you found somebody weaker than you. It takes a strong person to hang up. It takes a strong person just to go bang, because the weak person is like, oh, hello, I'll be nice and listen to them, and then the thing that happens is you call 100 people, you finally find somebody weaker than you. They say yes to your product or your service. You dominate them. You overcome all their objections. You force them into the sale, and you get the sale. But the problem is that you don't get a referral source. And you might think, well, they use the product. Maybe they'll refer. Here's the thing: even if they referred you, nobody would use the product or service because they're weak, and people know they're weak. And so it's like when there are certain people that if they suggested you do something, you would do something differently, period. They're just, it's a weak referral. Well, what do you got to do? You got to keep calling. You got to keep preying on the weak. Well, you might think, well, that's man, right? That's how we do it. And it's like, no, it's not, right? That's not how we do it. We actually went into an agricultural society, grow, and then an orchard society, which is grow and build and that kind of thing. So it really is what you talked about is that, when you start to focus on give your best, is what happens is you are building a business that is about partnering with the strong instead of preying on the weak.
Teaching us to love and nurture. You're loving and nurturing, and it's nothing. I know other big corporations, it's, you're a salesperson, you have to be a hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I want to be a nurturer.
Yeah.
I want to love on people.
Gardener. You want to be a gardener.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to get dirty, so I'm going to be a nurturer. You could be a gardener. That's okay.
Yeah.
But, but it is that idea of that, I want to give my best to people, and then I'm going to stand out. I'm going to be different, because salespeople, don't run their businesses like that.
Yeah.
If I add massive value, then I'm going to most likely be the person that they want to entrust.
Yeah.
On the times where I don't, then I put a question mark and I leave myself where I may not be the best.
Yep. So what have you discovered about yourself in going through this? How have you changed in the last 7 or 8 years? Or what have you noticed about yourself that's changed?
Wow, a lot. I will tell you that I initially was ridiculously afraid of the networking stack.
Mm-hmm.
That literally, I think it took me 3 or 4 years to implement that.
Mm-hmm. Explain the networking stack for people who are maybe new to this.
Yeah, so the networking stack is how you get your nose-to-nose, part of the time, face-to-face time with your A pluses and A's. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at, we always embrace, we spend our time, money, and our energy on our best. And so we'll do, and you could do it over breakfast or have a lunch networking stack or a happy hour networking stack. But the idea is like, your lunch appointment, because you're spending your time and your money, is going to be an A plus or somebody that you really think you could have as an A plus. And you're going to sit down, and it isn't about you throwing up on them about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's about asking how their life is, finding out what their biggest challenges are, and then adding value at some point. It might not even be when you're sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is you take this lunch appointment from like 11:30 to 1, and then an ambassador comes in at 1 o'clock, and you've set the expectation, when you've confirmed the appointment, hey, just so you know, we're going to be done at 1 today. I totally respect your schedule, and I know you're super busy, and I'm so grateful for your time, but I do have a 1 o'clock coming in when you're going to be leaving. And then your 1 o'clock comes in, and it's most likely an A, and they're going to meet your 11:30 lunch. And what's the one thing they usually have in common?
You.
Mm-hmm. And so you let them do a quick introduction. You might run off to the bathroom. You might come back then. And then you have another back-to-back meeting. And that's just a coffee, you're having tea, but it's really about you being in one place where you're not getting stuck in traffic. You're not late because you're there in one place. And you get to connect face-to-face, because as good as I am on email, I'm not as good on email as I am on the phone.
Mm.
And then forget the phone. When I can get you face-to-face, toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose, belly-to-belly, whatever you want to call it, that's when we're connecting at our best.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal really is to get face-to-face, whether that's the one-on-ones like the networking stacks, or seminars or events like We Love You a Latte, my housewarming parties, all of which I learned from Michael and 7L. That's where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm. So what's the most interesting or crazy or amazing thing that's happened within like the networking stack at a home court advantage environment for you, or that you've heard?
Me, I guess I'm pretty boring. Nothing really crazy happened. I mean, I have gotten people connected where they now refer to each other, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Which, just so you know, is crazy amazing if you think about it, that, you made that happen and you had a system to facilitate that. But you see it as, well, that's just what happened, So it's been amazing for those two, for sure. And they thank you to this day for putting them together.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And my whole thing is, as strange as it is, if you get me, unless I'm teaching, if you get me in an event that's 300 people where I'm not teaching, I want to go against the wall. I'm going to find one person and I am going to latch onto them and make them my friend for the rest of the night. I'm not like, the life of the party, I'm out there, right? The beauty of the networking stack is we're one-on-one. I am so into you when you're sitting in front of me. I'm listening. I'm getting your okay. I'm taking some notes. You're telling me you're going on vacation to wherever it is. I'm going back to the office. I'm finding the top 5 places that you should go eat when you're there. And I'm pulling the article, I'm cutting, pasting it, and I'm sending it to them that night. Like, I'm like, gosh, I know you mentioned this. I just saw this online. I wanted to get it over to you.
Yeah, I love that.
And then we leave, and then we do the handwritten note, which is my second favorite thing from 7L.
Yeah.
Is the handwritten power note.
So one nice thing that I love, and that some people learn later, is don't promise anything at the meeting. Don't promise any value. Just listen to them and then surprise them with your value. Too many people are there like, oh, I'll connect you to this person, or they're real. They're really looking to help, and they think that it's like this, the one-on-one is to help. You're helping by listening. So just listen, then bring the value on the back end. A surprising email about the 5 best places to eat in Paris, France is far more powerful than saying, I'm going to send you the 5. And the other thing is you're also setting yourself up for failure, is that if it doesn't happen. The nice thing is just listen, take your notes, provide the value later, and just go from there.
I totally agree. Because before you, I would have started going, well, what are you well, you should do this. You should do this.
That's right.
And you taught me the 3.5 magic questions of my world that I use all the time now.
Yeah.
That I kind of, I'm not saying they're mine. I always give you credit. Don't worry. It's yours.
They're yours now,
But it was like, it took me back and say, you know what? I'm really going to put some thought into this.
Yeah.
You matter that much.
Yeah.
That I'm going to go put some thought into how I can help.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge right now? What have you tried so far? What are you going to do next? And by when? And it's all the whole thing on that is don't advise, let them talk, and respect them as an intelligent human being to the point where they're going to figure it out themselves. Even if I have people like, what's your biggest challenge right now? Referrals. I'm like wanting to jump out of my skin to help. And it's just like, all right.
What have you tried so far?
Yeah. What have you tried so far? And they say it. And it's like, all right, so what are you going to do next? And sometimes they'll say, I need to read a book. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of good books on referrals out there. You should check them out.
And by when are you going to have that done?
Yeah. Yeah. And then by when?
Everyone that's listening right now, this is what you're going to do. You're going to listen to me right now, and you're going to take your little finger and you're going to move back just 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And I want you to grab a pen.
Yeah.
And I want you to grab some paper, and this will rock your world.
Yeah.
Like literally rock your world.
Yeah.
If you want to be a difference maker for people and differentiate yourself from others, you're going to write down those 3.5 questions, and you're going to learn them, have them on sticky notes. I don't care what you have to do. But you learn those, it's literally going to rock your world.
Yeah. Well, it's the primary way to provide value. Like if there was like a Lord's Prayer for providing value, it would be in my opinion, it would be those 3.5 questions, because, what's your biggest challenge right now? Everybody always has challenge. We talk about what are your goals, and we talk about that as kind of, if you want to have 2 questions in your pocket, if you will. One is, what is your biggest challenge right now, and what are your goals? But the thing with what are your goals is that not everybody sets goals. And it's one of those where it's what are your goals is a phenomenal question. But once you're starting to build a relationship, you really can't necessarily say what are your goals every meeting. You can say at every meeting, Sue Adler gave me a hard time. She's one of the top real estate agents in the world, and she's out of New Jersey. And so we were at a networking cocktail reception, and I go, what's your biggest challenge right now? Kind of casually. And she goes, you always ask me that. And I go, I know, I'm genuinely curious. Like a person at your stature, a person in your world, you're handling different challenges than most. So what's your biggest challenge right now? And she told me. And then I was like, all right, what have you tried so far? And then it's, what are you going to do next? And she had an idea, and the buy-win is she's like, I've already got an interview set up for that person. That's the difference with top producers versus the average, is the top producer, when you get to the buy-win, they've already implemented. I have to give credit. I'm looking at my phone real quick, only because I need to get her last name right. So Terry, I need to shoot out a shout out to Terry. This is going to take me a second. Terry Van. Oh no, it's not on. Terry Van Horn. Terry Van Horn in Virginia Beach. I did a presentation. 30 minutes after the presentation, she had 2 sponsors for her event. She had a date. She had a venue. Within 30 minutes of me speaking about, here's the way to run the perfect event. And she had already implemented most of that. And she had already gotten the event paid for, and she hadn't even invited anybody yet, but she had already implemented. So that's the key to the power here is that many top producers are going to say, by when, they're like, it's in plan, it's in process. Whereas here's what's funny, the average will go by Friday and it's Tuesday, or they'll say by the end of the month or by the end of the year. And it's just like, listen, is this really the biggest challenge you have right now? Because what top producers do is they conquer their biggest challenges daily. What is my biggest challenge? What is my biggest challenge? Conquered. What is my biggest challenge? Conquered. And they conquer their biggest challenges while the average conquer their smallest challenges on a daily basis. And sometimes they don't even conquer that.
Well, you have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because if you're living comfortable all the time, that means you're not challenging yourself. You're not wanting to get better. And I think the biggest thing, to kind of bring it to me for our conversation, is that they don't teach this everywhere. And if it feels uncomfortable to you, that's a really, really good thing. And for the ladies, it's a love story if you haven't read it. For the guys, it's not a love story. It's a system, strategy, and tool for you to have the best life and the best business. And so, you can't usually get that anywhere. And then the fact that, you've got the system behind the system of 7L to help coach and mentor you through it. There literally is 100 things in there, and you're going to stink at some stuff and you're going to rock at some stuff. But you have a community behind you of folks that have done it, failed, succeeded, and failed. That's going to help you with maybe failing a little less than we did when we implemented it originally.
Yeah, love that. Sandy speaks all across the country, Canada, English speaking, anywhere. And so, Sandy, how do they reach out to you? How do they contact you to have you come and teach the concepts?
Yeah, absolutely. My hotline is 480-420-7107. If I don't pick up, somebody on my team will, and they have my schedule in front of them. But I would listen. It's like other than talking about my kids and my horses and my dogs, this is my subject. It's part of my heart, and it's because it's going to change your world. So I would love to chat with you.
Yeah, I love your passion. I love your heart. Love where you're coming from. And is there an email address or any other way to maybe reach out to you besides just the hotline, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. My team email is Sandy with a Y, so it's SANDY at the Krestan team, and my last name is KRESTAN team.com.
I love it. Reach out to Sandy. Thank you, everyone, for being on episode number 60 of our podcast. 60. Can you believe that? And here's the other thing. Sandy, will you help me in the future interview people who come on Referrals Podcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to remind you that this all happened with me with training. And we have a certified referral trainer and referral mastery coming up in November. And how do we have them be able to get a hold of it if they want to really learn the 7L way, which is it's not a system, but it's a system, it's strategies, it's tools. It's a change of heart. Yeah. So Referral Mastery is November 14th to the 16th. It's in Atlanta. And if you want to register, just go to referralmasterysummit.com.
That's right. That's right. We'd love to have you there. And CRT is actually the 2 days before that. So you can actually get your certified referral training and then go to the Referral Mastery Summit over the next 2.5 days during that week. So it could be a very productive and profitable week for you. And we're looking forward to having everybody there. And check it out at referralmasterysummit.com. Do me a favor, please share this podcast, share it with those you know, and also make sure that you grade. If you have not reviewed this on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, I'm going to just ask you, do us a favor, right? Grade us out. And if we can't earn a 5 from you, then email us at podcast@referco.com and tell us what would make it a 5. And my promise to you is we read every single one of those emails, and we're always looking to improve. Our goal is always 12 out of 10. That's always our goal. And we'd love to make that possible for you. And we've had people who have said, one way to do that is to have me on as a guest. Well, you got to implement. You got to show what you're doing to get referrals. And guess what? Then we will get you on Referrals Podcast. We want you to be on Referrals Podcast. And speaking of that, we want Sandy Krestan to be on future Referrals Podcasts. So Sandy, thank you so much. And we will see you on future Referrals Podcasts.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm very grateful.